What is going on, fellas? It's Tufek, GM. We got the face cam on today because it's going to be a slightly different style video. I'm not going to fully read over the new blog. I'm going to give you a quick TLDR, and then I also want to ramble a little bit about Seeker arrows and the Bloodwood woodcutting. And before the video begins, I want to give a massive shout out to all of our channel members. Big shout out to all of the heroes and legends. Thank you all for supporting the channel directly and helping me put out all of these videos, keep my streams live every single day. I appreciate you all more than you know. A slight update to the method. If you watch the first guide on just right when it came out, the basics of it, we do have a better spot for the trees. There's actually a spot over here past where the Maggot King is. You just follow the scout, the guy that you help out with the mosquitoes over down south to get access to the shortcut. And then these three trees are actually all 2 ticks apart from each other. So it's just a lot smoother, a lot nicer when you're cycling through the 3 of them. The peak XP per hour I've been able to get with banking factored in is about 212k. With no banking, like obviously your first inventory here, it's about 220k. So if you see the 220k rates, that's not factoring in banking. The people advertising those rates, it's just not. Maybe with the crystal axe you can, but there's no downtime with the dragon felling axe. It's 19 chops per tree with dragon. There's 0 downtime. It's just full active all chopping. It drains just in time for you to arrive to it, so I don't see how you maintain 220k with banking the sap, unless you're using it on the arrows just to eat the loss. Like, if you're immediately using it on the arrows, taking buckets, and never leaving, I guess you could get 220k per hour, but that's really stupid, so I don't think anyone's doing that. So the real XP per hour with banking, with everything, is slightly more than 210k XP per hour, and that is assuming you have the Dragon Felling Axe, which, if you don't know, the wiki was wrong initially in terms of how many chops per tree it is. I went on like a schizophrenic break counting the other night, because it's supposed to be 20, but it is in fact 19. So that's what it says the rate is for the crystal, but the dragon has that as well. I've never used the crystal axe here, so I don't know if it's 18, but either way, 19 is quick enough for you to, again, like I said, keep permanent uptime and maintain that 210k XP per hour, so it is very good. But we, like I said, are going to go over the items from the new raid blog, the stuff that they talked about, and talk about Seeker arrows as a whole. First, I'll just give my quick TLDR on the new raid proposed items. Honestly, the reason I'm not doing a full blog read on them is I don't have that many initial thoughts. They're not as, like, and you might disagree with me here, they're not as insanely, like, game-breaking in terms of, like, the way the game works, I don't think. Like that hybrid armor was, and so I'm not going to do a full read over, but we are, however, just going to do a quick TLDR while I do some of this Bloodwood woodcutting. So the new rewards that they have proposed, if you don't know, they scrapped the hybrid armor. My thoughts were given in the last video, but basically it was way too many stats crammed into a single armor. It would have become the armor that most people wore in most places. And it was better than almost everything but, like, the super bis. And for a hybrid armor, that's kind of insane. So they basically said, we would need to tone it down if we want to add it to the game, but if we toned it down, it wouldn't really feel great to be a raid reward. So they decided to just full scrap it. It looked beautiful, like, it had awesome visuals, but yeah, it was just way too broken, so glad that they scrapped that. They have not replaced it with 3 new items, but, however, with 2. The first one, the less interesting of the 2, is a new, like, scepter cane kind of magic staff spec weapon. It's basically going to be like a superior mage spec weapon to the volatile staff currently. If you want, like, a magic offensive spec, they wanted to be, like, similar to Dragon Claws in power, but just on the magic side. Effectively, how it's going to work is you're going to have a semi-powerful spec, and then what that will do is it'll put you into, like, an empowered state where you now have a 2-tick attack speed and you have giga buffed damage from those attacks. Otherwise, it's just an Eye of Iac with a lower max hit. Like, it's just a worse Eye of Iac in its base form when you're not specking, when you're not activating the empowered state. But when you do spec with it, it's a spec weapon that you don't just dump on one target by clicking the button once. You, like, power yourself up, and then you can dump that damage onto one target, onto multiple targets if you finish one off. Seems really interesting. I don't have any, like, problems or anything major to say other than, like, that seems really cool, and I love the idea. It's freaking sick. And it's like a cane style mage weapon. I saw a concept on Reddit for just like a giant book that has like it basically had the exact same effect as what they talked about in the blog, but it's just a giant book. And I thought the idea of that was so cool. Just like a massive tome that you're casting spells like literally out of, like the spells are shooting out of the tome. I thought that visually would be insanely cool, but alas, we get this cane thing, which is pretty cool and can be used with an offhand, notably, versus, you know, big-ass two-handed tome. You wouldn't be able to. The other reward that they have proposed adding, which is something people have been terrified of or talked about for a long time, is Zeal, a new upgrade to the Piety Prayer, also known as Turmoil, I believe, in RS3, just the bigger, better melee prayer. People have been clamoring for something like this for ages, and they thought, you know what, maybe now is the time to do a new prayer from a raid and have it be an upgrade to the melee prayer. Now, they did say, like, Piety is currently in line with Rigor and Augury, like, that's the current tier of prayers. This would be a step above. This would be a big step up in power. So they said this wouldn't be like the most common item from the raid. This would not be the Prayer Scroll or the Fang or the Avernic equivalent. If this gets added to the raid, this will be rare. This will be one of the harder items to obtain, which rightfully so. If they add that, that will be a disgusting buff to melee everywhere. I don't know necessarily if the game is ready, but personally, I'm always here for big power creep from difficult, like, impactful, large content. So, like, if we're gonna add something like that, if JAGEX thinks it's the time, like, this is the place. So, really all I have to say is, like, hopefully they don't uber overbalance it so that we then need an answer in the form of like an upgrade to Rigor and an upgrade to Augury shortly after to make the other styles feel like they hold a candle to melee. Like, hopefully it doesn't balance it in a way that melee is just, if you can melee something, you're gonna fucking own it. Which might be the case if we get like a juicier Piety on top of a second melee mega rare, that if Scythe doesn't pop off, this other one might. It might put melee in a very, very, very strong state, so depending on how they balance it, little concerning, but I, as always, have faith in the JMod, so I don't think it's going to be too game-breaking if they add just an upgraded melee prayer. That's what I said, it's like game-breaking, but not in the sense that like that hybrid armor was going to be. That hybrid armor was going to break the game and change the way the game looks in a lot of ways. I think Zeal will change what you use on certain things, but not necessarily change like the feel or the function of most things in the game. So there's that. It's game breaking, but it's like game breaking in a very old school RuneScape power creep way. So I'm kind of here for it. And then they also talked a little bit about the Rondache, the shield. They talked about removing the strength bonus so it doesn't maybe step on Avernic's toes, but then they also said maybe being able to crush down Avernix into Avernic dust to then use it to add the strength bonus. I think they're smoking a little too much with some of those things. I hope the Rondache just ends up sitting in as like a defensive alternative offhand to be used in some situations. I think that would be really cool. I think just the more it starts encroaching on Avernic as like the offensive offhand option, I think it just is odd. I don't think necessarily that is a slot that we want to just permanently upgrade with a shield for forever, but potentially just have options in the Rondache. So me personally, I think leave no strength bonus or a very low strength bonus and have, if you are doing damage with it, it's from content that is like allowing you to shield bash enough to outshine the Avernic. Something like that would, I think, balance it and like make it actually feel like a unique, interesting weapon and thing that you use, rather than just something that you're always now having to micromanage every single time you're using melee because it's replaced the Avernic. I think that will become annoying. I think if you just like have to click your Rondache button constantly when you're doing one-handed melee, I think would get pretty annoying pretty quick, to be honest. Maybe I'm just being cynical, but I think that would get frustrating if it replaces Avernic entirely and you're just always having to micromanage using your Rondache charges whenever they fill up. I do think that would get annoying, so hopefully they don't do that. And then with the Ascension Crossbows, they basically said, you guys really like these and didn't have much to say negatively, so like, yeah, Ascension Crossbows, boom. And then they also, for the Megarare, of course, said, oh yeah, we saw your calcs now. And potentially JAGEX saw the thumbnail of my 4,000 view video, or potentially there's just a coincidence and the JMod had the exact same slight sense of humor, being referencing the calc is short for calculator video, which is just some obscure ass like Fortnite TikTok or YouTube short, where just some kid just keeps saying calc is short for calculator. And my video talking about the first blog was, you know, we ran the calcs, and like the thumbnail was calc is short for calculator. So in my mind, it's just a coincidence. Obviously, it's just a fucking coincidence. They didn't see my video. I'm nobody, but I get to make a clickbait-ass title that maybe they saw my video. Whoa. No, they hella didn't. It's just, you know, calc is in fact short for calculator. But they did adjust the numbers on it. They changed the formula. I'm not going to get too much into it, but they basically said things that aren't crush weak, this thing shouldn't be absolutely giga-gapping the scythe and every other option. So they fixed it so that it will be doing what they intended, which is being the super mega crush bopper that will be better than scythe anywhere that is, you know, not weak to slash or not necessarily neutral in defense. It will probably just nuke. So they listened to us, they ran some calcs themselves, and now here we are. We have the new blog. It is pretty good overall. I'm happy they didn't release any crazy numbers about Zeal or anything, so we'll see what they actually think of for that. But yeah, those are the thoughts overall. Now we're going to get into the Seeker Arrows. So obviously it is Wednesday. We did not get the Seeker Arrow change today, but they told us what the Seeker Arrow change is going to be. Effectively, if you have a bunch of arrows, originally you were super punished if you wanted to convert them into Seeker Arrows. You were able to convert them at 1/7 of the rate. You got 15 arrows per bucket of sap instead of 105 with a redwood log. Just egregious. I have 150,000 amethyst arrows. I've been doing all this sap, and I was ready to have to do a lot of this. But they basically said, we're going to make it so that you can use Seeker Arrow shafts / headless Seeker Arrows. We'll get more into that in 1 second. On arrows to just switch out the arrow shafts. So now what you can do is, if you've been saving your sap like they told us to, you can use them on redwood logs and you can chop them into the Seeker shafts. And then hopefully next Wednesday they will add the update where you can use those on arrows and it will replace the existing regular shaft with the upgraded one. For 1-to-1, you don't actually get punished for having existing arrows. Now I say there's something, a little asterisk there. They used both terms when they say how you're going to be able to do this. So they said you'll be able to use the headless Seeker Arrows on existing arrows. And then they said doing so will consume the Seeker Arrow shaft. So in my eyes, probably the second part is the incorrect part of that. Probably the using headless Seeker Arrows is the correct half of that, and not the it consuming Seeker Arrow shafts. Truthfully, it would make more sense that you don't need to refletch them into headless arrows before you use them on the existing arrows, but like it would also like logically make sense that you're only transferring the arrow tips instead of like somehow getting the feathers and the tip like transferred over to the new stick of wood. Like logically that makes sense, but also it doesn't, like RuneScape logic wise, doesn't make sense to have to just add feathers for a second time when you already did when you initially fletched the arrows. But most likely it will be the headless Seeker Arrows, like the headless meaning with feathers attached, what I'm doing is I'm just chopping all of my sapped redwood logs into arrow shafts, and I'm going to wait until next Wednesday and see what it actually is. And then we'll go from there. If I need to attach some feathers, so be it. It won't take that long. I'll just do it at the Brimhaven agility. So right now we are, you know, 1 week and a day after it came out. I have 80,000 Seeker arrow shafts in the bank, so like I've already acquired enough to convert all of my Duo Gims arrows into Seeker arrows, his Amethyst ones, and we've already done all the Dragon ones. And give me like a week or so and I'll be able to do my 150k stack. And like that just... I want to talk about just the Secret Arrows as a concept, as like a thing they've added, as like a piece of power creep, and like just I want us to think about like where this is coming from and how we obtain this, and like why it just to me it doesn't sit right. I voted no against Secret Arrows initially, and I still think they're a bad addition to the game, and like let me explain why. First of all, I'm an Iron Man. I don't care that I have to get all of these. Like I said, I already have 80k arrow shafts worth. I'm gonna be done with this and have arrow shafts into perpetuity within a week or two. That doesn't bother me, and I'm getting a shit ton of XP from it. That doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I love the woodcutting activity. The woodcutting activity rocks. Like, it's really good. But secret arrows themselves, I think, are just... they're a problem, and they're an indicator of, like, worrisome things to come in terms of power creep. I want you to think about, like, all of the quest upgrade power creeps we've gotten before. Thinking of like Vorkath's head. You complete the quest and then you have access to Vorkath. At 50kc you can get the upgrade. It gives you some range strength and it's like a contextual, logical, lore-wise makes sense. It's like a cool upgrade. And you earn it. You go, you fight the boss, and you get it from him. It makes sense. Think of like, I don't know, Prifdinus. You unlock so many interesting skilling methods that are good. You unlock the gauntlet where you can then go earn, you know, that armor and those upgrades. Nothing is really like handed to you that's that significantly power. It's all earned and like relatively reasonably like effort to reward typically. And then there's these arrows, which if you don't know, Seeker arrows, when added to any type of arrow, so Dragon, Amethyst, whatever, you get a minimum hit. So if your hit would have rolled, I believe, a 0 or a 1, it will roll a 2. And then you also get plus 20 accuracy, just a flat plus 20 accuracy, always, forever. So like in Void setups at Doom, this is particularly busted, but it's just like 20 accuracy forever on your arrows. Always. And like I said, I have gotten 80,000 of these already, so it basically is just immediately within the quest, you know, coming out, you finish the quest, and then suddenly you just have this massive upgrade to your ranged accuracy and strength when you're using T-bow, Venator bow. Like, these are very big weapons in terms of like, if you have a lot of the gear in the game, if you're, you know, doing content, you're using these items, and like they're powerful already, and we just got 20 more accuracy and a min hit, like just kind of for existing, and to me it's just a bit problematic. It's just a bit much. Like I think if Seeker arrows were plus 10 accuracy, no one would have batted an eye. It would have passed the poll. People would still be immediately going to get them. People would be clamoring to have them. Like they would be expensive still. Like it wouldn't make them like less desirable. It would still be just like a flat, boom, here's a min hit, here's some accuracy onto your arrows for basically no reason, just for doing a little bit of skilling after completing a quest. Which just like, to me it feels too much. It just feels like too much. I'm not a person to like usually care lore-wise about things. I really could give a fuck less. But also it is kind of just funny to me, like, what is the logic here? Like, what, like, secret knowledge the vampires have? They're good at archery? Has a vampire ever held a bow and arrow in RuneScape ever? Is there a single vampire in the game that doesn't just, like, mage you or melee you? Are there any of them with bows? Like, they got knowledge about arrows? And, like, how does making my arrows, like, sticky make them better? Like, it just, like, it makes no sense, which makes me like it even less. And, like, that's not my reason for disliking it, but it makes me like them even less. And so, like, that's just my kind of rant of, like, I don't know, I don't like Seeker arrows that much. But they're in the game, and I'm gonna get a shit ton of them, and I'm just gonna forever permanently have plus 20 accuracy and a min hit on my arrows always, and it's gonna feel great. But I don't know if I like the direction of this style of upgrade. Maybe it's like a one-off thing. Maybe it's they just wanted to give like a big upgrade that isn't from the boss from the quest, but it's from like the skilling thing they added. I don't know, but it feels like too much for too little effort. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way, if that's coming across, but either way, that's my piece. I hope you enjoyed my ramble while I, grabbed a little inventory of Bloodwood sap. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, boys. Drink some water, touch some grass, kiss a homie, and yeah, peace out, boys.